my dad was one of the huge parts of my life and how I became the man I am today. And he taught me that you can't overcome, your situation, no matter what it is,
Welcome to Locala Podcast, everybody. I'm Lisa Anderson, your host and publisher of Locala Magazine. We are continuing with our June 2023 issue of callbacks from past issues as we celebrate going into our third year of the magazine already. And so today we have brought back Josh Dennison, who is the owner of First Impressions Printing, where our lovely, if you get the subscription to our magazine, is actually printed. So I'm super excited to have him because I actually didn't do his first interview. So this is our first conversation. And so welcome to the show, Josh.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So you were back, your issue was back in November of 2021, and you actually landed the cover.
Yes. Yes, that was a surprise to me.
Yes, it is to most people. I never let people know who's landing on the cover.
Yeah, I've never had anything like that happen to me in my life, so that was very interesting.
and when you get the issue to get it printed, you got the early sneak peek of what was happening.
Yes.
Yeah. No, actually, that was before we printed it. That was before I printed it at your office, I think. So.
I think that was the first issue we did, actually, if I remember correctly.
Oh, no, it was the following issue, I think.
You're correct, actually, because now I remember I asked for you to send me the digital copy so I could print it out for my family.
Yes.
Yes.
And thus our partnership was formed.
Yes, exactly. Yep.
So what have you been up to in the last, year and a half or so?
A lot.
Yeah.
Well, I've been trying to take advantage of, every opportunity that comes my way as much as I possibly can. As being a business owner during COVID, I really learned from my mistakes on just having, one set of income coming in.
Yeah.
This is part of my story. I don't know if I really ever talked with originally with the article we did. But during COVID, on my original business I had when I was in Nebraska at the time, we got hit so hard because we were only promotional and apparel.
Yeah.
And during COVID, obviously, people are cutting money out. And
events are gone.
Those are like the first things to go is promotional apparel. So we got down to the point where I was maybe, I think, a couple $100 left in the bank account for the business. Oof. And we had to really I had to just hit grind mode and cut every cost we possibly could and get it back to the point where at least we were in the, the good at least.
Yeah.
But I learned from that. And that's what actually originally brought me here to Florida in the first place is because I realized I needed to diversify more. Mm-hmm. I need to have more options available than just promo and apparel. And obviously, the next step in what we were offering was, your print, your signs, your banners, mailing services, all that kind of stuff that all coincides with each other. But in my city that we were at, in Nebraska, the print shops already had their foothold in the community. Sure. And there was no way in interjecting that. They didn't want to sell, so my only opportunity was to expand outside of our city. Yeah. So I looked for my first available. I looked for options out there for print shops available, and I found tons, out there that were for sale. But I narrowed it down to 3. It was Texas, Arizona, and here in Ocala.
Okay.
And more I looked into it, Ocala was just the perfect fit. It has that almost Midwest feel to it. With the horses, everything kind of about it that didn't scream big city totally. And I'm not a big city person, which technically this is big city compared to where I came from.
Me too. I know everybody refers to this as small town, but I'm well.
Yeah. So, obviously with the business side of things, it's perfect because they didn't have any ownership on site.
Okay.
The previous owner actually had passed away from a heart attack in 2010.
Oh, wow.
So he left it to his 2 brothers that lived in Michigan and Pennsylvania, and they just ran from afar.
Okay.
So a general manager, which Dennis.
Yes.
He pretty much was the one running the company, but there was no actual ownership,
Okay.
he did an amazing job, and the staff there, I still have almost every single one of them that are still there, and they're
You
amazing.
had one retire.
One retired, unfortunately. But that's part of life. I guess I got to let them go when they want to retire. But
I don't know why they wouldn't want to work forever. I mean, come on.
I mean, it's not for everybody, I guess.
I guess not.
But I just saw so many opportunities. They didn't really have a big focus on the promo side, that's what my background was. So I was able to kind of come in, bring that, just a lot of things, and plus Florida.
Yeah. I mean, warmer than you were at, for sure.
I am not a big fan of cold.
No.
Definitely very nice, for sure, to be able to be where it's, I remember I went into a networking event when I first came here, and I believe it was probably in the 40s or 50s or something like that. And I walked in t-shirt, and actually I had shorts on. I didn't have pants on. And they're khaki shorts. They were nice, but like it was like a short sleeve polo and khaki shorts, and everybody's like got like almost like parkas on. I was like,
I fell very quickly into feeling Florida-ish in the cold, but part of it I feels colder to me sometimes. It's really weird. Okay, so at the time we're recording this, it's currently 60s out, but it feels hotter because all the humidity is there. But you put 60s in the winter, and it feels so cold.
Yeah.
And putting parkas. But we also don't get that transition. It's like goes from 80 to 40.
Yep.
And so I understand. And so I'm very much the bundle up.
Well, when I left to move here, it actually got down to the point where it was negative 20 for like a week straight.
Oh, so 40s, 50s felt pretty good to you at that point.
100%. Yes. I came straight from that, and to come here, it was beautiful to me. But the funny thing is I walked in that room, and they're like, "You're not from here, are you?" I was like,
no.
How do you know? And
out of towner.
You just tell by the way you're dressed.
Yeah. You're not old enough to be a snowbird, but.
Yeah, correct. Yep.
So, well, cool. So the business has definitely grown. You've added a lot of different branches as far as your print capabilities, yeah?
Correct, yes. And I just added new machinery just now that actually we were actually going to be, some of our stuff we, had to outsource because we didn't have all the equipment to do everything in-house. I ended up buying the building, and with that, we had a large lease payment that we had, at the time. And we were able to actually save quite a bit of money by buying the building. Yeah. And with that money that I saved, instead of just taking that and, putting it in the bank account or whatever, I wanted to improve what we're offering and hopefully grow the company even more. And so I invested into equipment and got an expansion loan for the equipment and basically brought it to where I was paying the lease.
Yeah.
So didn't save any money, but in the long run, it's going to benefit us the best. And where I'm actually at right now is I'm launching a new side of our company right now. It'll be on the wholesale side.
Oh, very cool.
So the new equipment I got actually is very commercial grade.
Okay.
And so FIP, First Impressions Printing, will still be obviously our retail side, but now I'm starting, it's called Patriot Line.
Okay.
Obviously, I'm a veteran, and I'm very passionate about that. So Patriot Line just is something that I just want to, as the name kind of rung with me. So now that company will be veteran owned, and I'm going to be giving back a portion of the sales to veteran organizations.
Oh, fantastic!
Something I always wanted to do since I got into business. I wanted to help my community in some way, and eventually I'd love to get to the point where I actually start my own nonprofit that helps veterans. That's something I'm very passionate about. And so that's where I'm going in the direction right now. But we're still on the grind stage, and right now, obviously, the print industry, there's the looming economy issues and things like that, and so we're a lot of people are holding tight to their money a little bit more, and so yeah. So again, that's why I want to diversify and have many different avenues of way we can make money so that I never have to worry about laying anybody off or anything like that, because, you know, my team they're like family to me.
Yeah.
You know, so especially like when, you know, you talked about one of my employees that retired, you know, that was hard because, you know, that's like a family member like leaving.
Right, right.
So, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of a good segue, because I know there's some more of your story that didn't all get in the article that you really wanted to touch base on. And one of the things that if they go back and read the article is that they find out that you were a police officer at one point, you were in the military. So why don't you give us a little bit of background on that and what you've been up to in the last year regarding that?
Yeah. So I straight out of high school, I joined the military. You know, there was a short period of time where I actually went to college, and then I was originally going to college to be elementary education because, you know, I love kids and, you know, I always saw myself being a teacher. And during that time, how I actually realized when I was younger, you know, 9/11 happened, obviously. And I think I was in 9th grade, if I remember correctly.
Such a puppy.
Yeah. I know, right? I'm getting up there.
I was in college.
I'm getting up there. I'm 35 now.
There you go.
So, but no, it happened in the 9th grade. And I remember having the feeling of, you know, everybody was like around me talking about like, I'm so glad I never was on that plane or, you know, here or there, you know, and I had like a different feeling. Like my feeling was more of like, I kind of wish I was on that plane and maybe I could have stopped those guys, you know?
Yeah.
And this is little 9th grade. By the way, my 9th to 10th grade year, I grew 7.5 inches.
Oh my goodness.
So yeah,
oh my goodness.
I had I was a little tiny little thing at that point, you know, so, you know, but I would have fought hard, you know. But no, at that point though, I was still like, I feel like I was not fully mature enough to really understand what that feeling inside of me really was like, and why I had that like thought that kind of crossed my mind of wanting to be there rather than other people that were glad they weren't there.
Yeah.
And so again, at that point, I wasn't even thinking military police and anything like that, you know, fully. You know, it was a thought in my mind because I had 2 brothers that were in the military. One was in the Army and one was in the Navy. And then my grandpa was also in the military. Okay. But again, it never really crossed my mind. And then while I was in college, you know, my first semester, I don't remember exactly. I should probably remember which school shooting it was, but there was a prominent school shooting that happened at that time. Again, like a lot of people were talking about, you know, I'm glad I wasn't there. My kid wasn't there, blah, 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 you know. And, you know, my thought process was, I wish I was there. I wish I was a teacher there, you know, because my mindset, you know, I was thinking teaching. I was like, I wish I was a teacher there. Maybe I could have stopped those kids from being killed or, you know, something like that. And then I talked with one of my friend's parents. He was in the military. And he kind of said, you know why you're having that feeling, right? And I was like, I don't know. I was like, you want to protect people. I was like, I never thought about that. I was like, you know, I guess I am kind of I feel like I have a protective nature about me, I guess, if you really think about it. I said, but I never really saw myself being that person. You know, I always felt like I was, you know, just me, you know?
Yeah.
And so I kind of put some thought into it, and I really realized that, you know, I want to be a police officer. I want to help people. Obviously, at the time, I was only 18 years old. And so I couldn't be a police officer. You had to be 21 years old to be a police officer. But to join the military...
you can be 18.
You can be 18, you know. So I ended up, you know, next thing I knew, I went to the recruiter's office. I did the whole thing, you know, where you got to go through the process and everything. And I went through it, and I got accepted and went and chose my MOS, which is your job, basically. And I chose military police. Within 11 days, I left they gave me an extra bonus if I left quickly, because there was, at the time, there was a need for it, that job. And so they gave me an additional bonus if I left within 11 days to go to my training.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I ended up going to training, and this is November 2006.
Okay. And this is Army, yeah?
This is Army, correct? Yes. Yep. So I go through my training and go through all that. I get back. Right when I get back, one of our family friends, I wouldn't say I was like super close with them, but I hung out with them a lot. And the family, I was basically my second family. It was their cousin, and we played basketball together, did go to church together and stuff like that. He died in Afghanistan from an IED. For those that don't know what IED is, it's an improvised explosive device, and that's what killed him. And I just got back, and my unit was calling me. I ignored their phone calls for a little while because I thought maybe they were, I don't know. This is young, not knowing everything me.
Yeah.
I thought my unit's calling me. Maybe they want me to try to do honor guard for him or something like that.
Yeah.
And I wanted to go as a civilian. I didn't want to go representing the military, because I knew him on the civilian side.
Yeah.
So I ignored that call. End up going to the funeral. I come back, I get another call, after that from my unit again. This time I actually answer. Well, they gave me the announcement we're deploying. And all my family and friends, because our community is small, knew about him, knew everything. Like it was kind of a big deal to, especially the people close to me.
Yeah.
They knew about it. And so I didn't tell people for a little while because it was still fresh in everybody. And I go, how am I supposed to tell them, hey, Jacob just died, but I'm going to war, So, that was kind of a sore subject for a little while. And, I told like 2 people, I think. But
how soon after the funeral did you wind up having to leave?
So we were originally supposed to leave in October. The funeral was, I want to say June. Okay. We were supposed to leave in October. It was a pretty quick, turn up and go. But they ended up getting pushed back to January.
Okay.
So, yeah. So
when did you finally start letting people know?
I let about, I think, maybe 2-3 weeks go by or something like that. I didn't want to let it drag out because I knew I was supposed to leave in October and I didn't want to last minute drop it on people.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, so that was kind of how that happened.
Okay.
So coming back around 2008, January, we deployed to Iraq. That's where we decided to go. And my particular job was detainee ops. So basically, we would some of our people we'd go capture or go pick up people, the bad guys, to put it nicely, I guess.
Yeah.
That had been captured or, whatever happened. And then they bring it back to the jail, through air transport. And then we would actually hold them in a prison there. And so it was a big prison. We had 17,000 detainees plus there.
Wow.
Yep. It was very, very big operation. Okay. And it's not like your general prisons like you have in the U.S. where it's big buildings and, cells and things like that. It's big open compounds.
Okay.
And, you have now the ones we were in charge of were the worst of the worst. So you had there was levels, there was green, yellow. It's been a while. There was another color. I think red, green. Green, yellow, red, black, and we had the black.
Okay, and the black was the worst.
And the black was the worst. And so that's where we, those guys were a little more locked down a little bit more so than what the other ones were, where they could just be free roaming almost in their compound. That's kind of one of the big things that we kind of had there.
Well, you said that you started finally talking about over this last year about your experience as a veteran and your experience over there and stuff like that. Do you mind sharing some of that?
Yeah. So I think the biggest thing, veteran suicide is huge in that, it's gotten a lot more notice, I think, over the last, several years. It's because of people putting out their voice, and trying to be start these nonprofits and things like that to help veterans. But there's still it's still an issue. And I think one of the biggest issues, this is just coming from my opinion. This is not any, direct, like, concrete evidence or anything like that. This is just my thoughts and how I feel like this truly affects veterans is, we go back to World War I, II, Vietnam, all the, we think about the things that those guys have been through. Like, I can't even imagine what that war was truly like to go through what they went through. Especially Vietnam, they came back and they were treated horribly by Americans, and even at the beginning of Afghanistan and Iraq, the all out war it was, initially. By the time I got there in 2008, it calmed down. Don't get me wrong. We were still at war, but it had calmed down. So, a lot of us, I feel, are afraid to talk about it because we know people had it way worse than what we had. But I think the biggest thing that, and this goes for the general public too, this is not just veterans, is we compare our situations of what we feel internally, and try to minimize it and think, oh, you know what, but somebody else has it worse. And so because of that, we don't want to talk about it because we're like, you know what, I really didn't have it that bad, so I shouldn't be feeling what I'm feeling. It's everything like that. You try to push it down and you don't want to talk about it also because you don't want somebody, especially in the military community, we're hard on each other, but I think obviously not in that realm. If somebody's struggling, we're there for each other. We're always going to be there for each other. But still, you have that feeling of like, we were trained to be tough and, rub some dirt on it, drink some water and drive on, You can't help how you feel. And, for me personally, like, again, my deployment was, compared to others was, easy, I had, there's nothing like that, but I still have my struggles because of things I experienced while I was there. The hardest thing is by the time we were there in 2008, the Iraqis, Afghanians, they knew not to get in a firefight with us, gun versus gun. We were way too good at what we did and when it came to that, trained, like, they were no match for us in that way. And they knew that. So the way they changed their strategies up was bombing us from afar, mortaring us is what they call it. IEDs, and things like that, things that they don't physically have to be there and actually worry about, getting, backlash from us, from trying to hurt us, so that we got bombed, from time to time and, throughout our time there, and it was pretty frequent, obviously you don't get bombed here. I mean, not to say ever, but I'm sure there's moments in areas where there's bombs that happen, but you just think about it. It's not part of your normal day life.
Right.
Whereas there, you have this alarm goes off and, it's like, take cover, incoming, blah, blah. Initially, the first time you hear it, we're all running to the bunkers, like hiding and stuff like that. And over time, everybody starts to want to try to be the tough guy and like, I'm just going to stay here, I die, whatever.
Yeah.
And trying to be the tough guy, which internally I'm not saying not everybody. I'm sure there were some people that really did feel that way, but I think most people were just outwardly trying to act like the tough guy, but internally extremely scared. That I know for me, it was the hardest thing not knowing because like you basically, is this next step I take, is it going to be my last? And you don't have that. I mean, don't get me wrong. There are dangers in our society.
Right. But not the same.
Yes.
Again, so there you are comparing.
Yeah,
right?
I know.
You talked about it and there you are comparing. But yeah, it's a different world. It's an entirely different scenario. Yeah.
So you kind of go through, that like constant state of like alertness and like, worry that your next step is going to be your last type of feeling. And even though you do kind of, you're on base, you're supposed to be safe. Like, you got tons of military personnel all around you, but again, they didn't fight with guns. Like they fought they'd be up in the mountains or far away with a mortar, which is basically, it's a little tube. They stick a little thing in and it shoots from far away. By the time they can shoot off several of them, and by the time we react and get somebody out there to try to find them, they're gone.
Yeah.
So you have that kind of, never feeling fully like safe there. I remember one situation in particular, we had left Iraq. We were in Kuwait processing out to go home, and we were considered in the green zone. That's what they were considered. They haven't been bombed in years. And we were sitting in our tents. It was I think there was 6 of us. We're playing spades. I remember it like it was yesterday. And all of a sudden the alarm goes off, indirect fire. And then all of a sudden bombs started going off, and all of us, get under our cots. Like it's gonna save us. But we at that moment, we already were accepting, oh, we're safe. We're going home. We're done with this. No more worries of not coming home. And it was ripped right back away from us. And the fear, some of them, they'll never, I don't know if they remember it like I do, but I saw the fear in their eyes just as much as I felt that I thought we were safe. You know what I mean? And, just situations like that,
Yeah.
Those are the type of stuff. And I feel like that's where I feel like most, and it's men mostly. I'm not saying women, but it's usually the stigma of men not wanting to feel like they're not the tough guy or something like that if they come out and talk about these internal struggles. Because now when I'm home, I still to this day, I can't go to church. I can't go to a grocery store, especially places with a large amount of people, without feeling unsafe. And it's not that I do feel a level, I'm realistic enough in my head to know I'm safe.
Right.
But I still have that internal, what if this? Don't let your guard down type of, feeling.
Yeah.
And so I always have this level of alertness, which then mentally, over time throughout the day, if I have this constant feeling of alertness, it just drains me. And, sometimes if I'm in a long period of time in a certain atmosphere like that, even networking events, going to, things like that, that's takes a toll on me, mentally, because, because I'm trying to keep that tucked down and keep a good face to the public and be, the owner of a business and
putting on that owner mask.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And, being what people expect of me,
Yes.
And, so then I come home and I'm just
Can you believe we're almost out of time? Where has the time gone? So, is there anything else that you wanted to address before we wrap up here?
I did want to say one more thing, about referencing my article. I had mentioned about my dad and, I kind of felt bad because obviously you can only fit so much in an article.
Yes.
I talked about, how his past, he was a drug dealer, and things like that. And how, when I was 3 years old, he found God and overcame that. But obviously that was about all I really fit in there, and, so I wanted to make sure I didn't paint him into this, I knew what, I was saying when I was saying it, but people were just reading that might, think differently about my dad. But my dad was one of the huge parts of my life and how I became the man I am today. And, he taught me that you can overcome, your situation, no matter what it is. The biggest thing I also want to put out there too, and this relates to my dad in a way, is he taught me that no matter what you're going through, where your situation is. And I think today I feel like we have such a victimhood mentality that people have, and that people you just want to put them in this box of okay, well you're poor, you're this is how you grew up. This is, you have to accept this life.
Yeah.
And you know, I didn't grow up with money or anything like that. You know, my dad, obviously, because of my dad's past, you know, he had troubles in the law, things like that.
Yeah.
He couldn't get your your really good jobs or anything like that. But he pressed on and pushed through it all, and you know, became, you know, he was constantly, you know, a lot of parents will tell you like hide the bad stuff in their life, and then don't ever really allow you to, you know, see the true side of what they went through in their life and how they've overcome or anything like that. And he was just straight honest with me. Like every little bad mistake he made in his life, hey, don't make this mistake. Make sure to do this. Like do better. Like, you know, I should have did this. Don't do that. You know, just all that kind of stuff. And it really like helped propel me, I feel, in my life by him just being honest and open with me. And, you know, I just, he was a big part of where I am at in my life, by pushing me and to be the better person, and not make the same mistakes as he made. Yeah, that's the kind of the biggest thing I really wanted to put out there, just because, you know, he was way bigger of a part of than just the dad. So, but it was kind of funny, full circle. You know, Dad was a drug dealer and I became a cop. So, we joke about that. We joke about that sometimes.
But you are correct. I think that's one of the things that I really was excited for about this particular month when we were planning, being able to call back and do stories, and also doing the podcast, because it allows people to say more than what we can put on a page, and really expound on their stories and stuff. And there's a lot of times when I interview people where that expansion is necessary to really understand, and you don't always get to put that on the page. And so I appreciate you wrapping that up full circle for people to understand.
Thank you.
Well, Josh, thank you so much for being here today. I really enjoyed talking with you. I wish we could talk for hours and we'd probably fill it up just fine.
Probably.
All right. Well, thank you everybody for joining us here at the Locala Podcast. Once again, I'm Lisa Anderson, your host. We'll have a link to Josh's business and his original article for you in the description. We look forward to seeing you here on the next podcast, where we focus on connections through stories.
But people do not talk about the actual journey of entrepreneurship and how difficult it is. They don't talk about the ups and the downs. They don't talk about the mental breakdowns, right? They don't talk about the tolls that it takes on you, physically, mentally, emotionally. Being an entrepreneur, a business owner, is not an easy thing.